The champagne glass shattered before midnight. It slipped from my fingers the second my brother said it. "I just want to thank Mom and Dad," Ryan announced, lifting his crystal flute under the glow of patio string lights. "For choosing me." The backyard erupted in warm laughter and applause. Neighbors from Westlake Hills smiled. His business partners clapped him on the back. Someone whistled. Choosing him. The word didn't land like a compliment. It landed like a confession. Cold December air rolled across the backyard, carrying the smell of brisket smoke and cedar wood. Austin doesn't usually freeze on New Year's Eve, but that night the temperature had dipped into the low 40s. Enough to see your breath. Enough to make everything feel sharper. I stood near the outdoor heater, fingers tightening around my glass. Ryan, 35, golden, adored, stood between our parents like a campaign poster. Navy blazer. Open collar. Expensive watch catching the light. The kind of man who shakes hands like he's closing a deal even when he's hugging you. "I wouldn't be where I am today without you," he continued. "You saw something in me. You chose me when it mattered." More applause. My stomach twisted. Because families don't choose their children. Unless there's a story the rest of the room doesn't know. The countdown began. 10. Fireworks already bursting faintly over downtown Austin, over Lady Bird Lake, over rooftops where college kids screamed into the night. 9. Mom dabbed at her eyes. 8. Dad wouldn't look at me. 7. Ryan leaned down and kissed Mom's cheek. 6. I felt it. That old familiar pressure in my chest. 5. The quiet understanding that in this family, I was the extra. 4. Headlights swept across the front of the house. 3. A vehicle slowed at the curb. 2. It wasn't a guest. 1. Happy New Year. The sky exploded in gold and blue. And a black SUV rolled to a complete stop outside our house. Dad saw it, and for the first time that night, his smile disappeared. The party continued, but something had shifted. I watched through the kitchen window as a tall man stepped out of the SUV. Gray overcoat, leather folder under his arm, calm posture, no celebration in his movements. He wasn't early 20s tech startup energy. He was legal, structured, measured. Dad excused himself too quickly. "I'll be right back," he muttered. Mom followed him without a word. Ryan was busy shaking hands, laughing loudly, basking in the glow of approval. I stepped quietly toward the foyer. The man stood just inside the doorway now, removing gloves. Snowless Texas boots tapping lightly against hardwood. "Daniel Mercer," he introduced himself calmly. "Trustee for the Harrison estate." Harrison, my grandmother's last name. The grandmother who supposedly left nothing but recipes and old photo albums. Dad's jaw tightened. "This isn't a good time." Mr. Mercer's expression didn't change. The timing was specified in the trust documents. My pulse quickened. "Trust documents?" Ryan appeared behind me. "What's going on?" Mercer's eyes scanned the room. "All beneficiaries must be present." Beneficiaries. Plural. The word cracked through the hallway louder than fireworks. Mom's hand trembled against the staircase railing. Dad swallowed hard. "Come into the living room," Dad said quietly. Guests outside laughed as confetti cannons popped. Inside, our family history was about to split open. The living room felt smaller than I remembered. The same beige walls. The same framed family photos. The same image of Ryan holding his first baseball trophy at 8 years old. There wasn't one of me next to it. Mercer opened his leather folder. "The Harrison estate," he began, "was placed into a managed trust 15 years ago." Dad's breathing grew shallow. "It was not dissolved." Ryan frowned. "What are you talking about?" "Grandma left everything to Mom and Dad." Mercer shook his head slightly. "That is incorrect." I felt heat rush behind my eyes. "The estate has been actively invested and managed," he continued. "Current valuation, approximately $12.4 million. The room fell silent. Even the fireworks outside seemed distant. Ryan laughed once. "Okay, and?" Mercer looked directly at both of us. "The trust names 2 equal beneficiaries." My heart slammed. "Ryan Bennett." He paused. "And Olivia Bennett." The air vanished from my lungs. Ryan blinked slowly. "That's not right." "It is documented," Mercer replied. Mom's tears began falling openly now. Dad stared at the floor. "You told us there was nothing," I whispered. Mom's voice cracked. "We thought it would motivate you." "Motivate us." Ryan stood abruptly. "So what? We've just been sitting on $12 million. "No," Mercer corrected calmly. Disbursements were structured. I felt something click. Structured. Ryan's early real estate investment. The seed money for his first commercial property. The silent backing when banks suddenly approved him. I looked at Dad. How much did he get? Dad didn't answer. Mercer did. Distributions were made over the past decade to support business capitalization. Ryan turned pale. That's normal, he said defensively. Parents help. Not with both children excluded from full disclosure, Mercer replied evenly. I stared at my brother. You knew? Ryan shook his head quickly. No, I didn't know it was like that. But he didn't sound shocked. He sounded caught. Mercer closed the folder slightly. There is one additional clause. We all looked up. The estate may only be liquidated upon unanimous agreement between beneficiaries. Ryan's head snapped toward me. What does that mean? It means, Mercer replied, neither of you can access full distribution without the other's consent. The implications settled like ash. We were tied. Financially, legally, strategically, after a lifetime of imbalance. Now we were equals. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. This is insane. No, I said quietly. This is balance. He turned toward me, anger flickering beneath the polished exterior. You left. You didn't even want to be part of this family business. I felt years of silence rise in my throat. I didn't know there was a business funded by my inheritance. Mom sobbed harder. Dad finally spoke. We thought you were stronger. There it was. The sentence that defined my childhood. Ryan needed support. I needed resilience. And somehow, that was considered fair. Outside, music still played. Neighbors still toasted. The world still celebrated. But inside that room, the story had changed. And the golden boy's shine looked different under the light. Mercer stood. I will schedule a formal estate meeting in February. He handed us copies of documentation. Paper heavier than it looked. When he walked out, the SUV headlights faded into the distance. Ryan turned slowly toward our parents. How long? He demanded. Dad closed his eyes. 15 years. Ryan's composure cracked. You let me think I did this on my own. You did build it, Mom cried. We just helped. How much? I asked again. Silence. And in that silence, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about money. It was about identity. Ryan's empire. My independence. Our parents' narrative. If the foundation was artificial, what else was? Ryan met my eyes. And for the first time in 36 years, he didn't look superior. He looked afraid. Because if we were equal, then everything he believed about being chosen was about to be corrected. And I wasn't sure yet whether I wanted justice or something far more dangerous. Ryan believes he built everything himself. But the trustee's documents suggest something deeper. Structured favoritism, silent manipulation, and a clause that binds us together. And February is coming. February in Texas doesn't freeze you. It waits. The kind of cold that isn't about temperature. It's about tension. For 6 weeks after New Year's Eve, my phone buzzed like it was wired to Ryan's anxiety. Liv, we need to talk. Liv, don't let this get weird. Liv, this isn't about childhood stuff. But it was. It had always been. Austin moved forward like nothing had happened. Food trucks lined South Congress. Joggers circled Lady Bird Lake. Tech workers filled downtown high-rises with oat milk lattes and startup pitches. The world kept spinning. But our family had stalled. I drove past my parents' house one evening, just before sunset. The sky was streaked orange and violet over the hill country. Their porch light flickered on automatically. The same porch where Ryan's graduation party had been held. Mine had been a small dinner. Mom called twice that week. We didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't answer the second call. Because intent doesn't erase outcome. The estate meeting was scheduled for February 14th. Valentine's Day. Fitting. Nothing says love like financial disclosure. The office building downtown stood all glass and steel, reflecting a pale winter sun. I parked 2 blocks away, needing the walk. My boots clicked against concrete as wind tugged at my coat. I felt steady. That scared me more than anger would have. Inside the conference room, everything was neutral. Gray carpet, frosted glass, bottled water placed neatly at each seat. Ryan stood by the window when I walked in. He looked thinner, still polished, still composed. But something restless moved under his surface now. Hey, he said quietly. Hey. We hadn't hugged since New Year's. Daniel Mercer entered moments later, carrying 3 thick binders. Thank you for coming. Mom and Dad followed. Dad's posture was rigid. Mom avoided my eyes. We sat. Mercer opened the first binder. The Harrison Trust was established 15 years ago. Initial valuation, $4.8 million. Current valuation, $12.4 million. He clicked a remote. A screen illuminated behind him. Charts. Growth lines. Property acquisitions. Ryan leaned forward. These properties, he began. Yes, Mercer replied evenly. Several were acquired using structured disbursements from the trust. Silence. My heartbeat slowed. There it was. Proof. Define structured, I said calmly. Mercer nodded. Funds were released through your parents as intermediaries. Not direct transfers. Primarily categorized as educational support and family investment assistance. Ryan's jaw tightened. That's normal, he insisted. Parents invest in their kids. In one child? I asked. His eyes snapped toward me. I didn't know you weren't getting the same thing. But you knew you were getting something. He hesitated. And that hesitation said everything. Mercer turned a page. There is another matter. Dad shifted uncomfortably. The trust included a discretionary clause. I felt a shift in the room. What kind of clause? I asked. A conditional distribution structure based on demonstrated financial stewardship. Ryan frowned. What does that mean? It means, Mercer said carefully, the trustee was authorized to evaluate which beneficiary displayed greater financial discipline before full access was granted. The room went still. Mom whispered, Daniel. Ryan blinked slowly. So you were judging us? Mercer remained calm. Not judging. Assessing. I felt my stomach twist. And what was the assessment? I asked. Mercer closed the binder gently. At present time, the beneficiary demonstrating greater long-term financial stability. He looked directly at me. Is Ms. Olivia Bennett? The words didn't feel real. Ryan actually laughed. You've got to be kidding. Mercer didn't flinch. Mr. Bennett, your portfolio is impressive. However, it is heavily leveraged. Risk exposure exceeds recommended thresholds. Ryan stood abruptly. You're saying she's better with money? I'm saying, Mercer replied evenly, she carries less debt and lower risk. Ryan turned toward me slowly. You did this. I did what? You hired forensic accountants. You started digging. I asked for transparency. Dad slammed his hand lightly on the table. Enough. The room vibrated with 15 years of imbalance. Ryan pointed at me. She left. She didn't even want to be part of the business. I stood too. I didn't know the business existed. Mom started crying again. This isn't how we wanted this to go. I looked at her. How did you want it to go? Silence. Because the answer was obvious. They wanted it to stay quiet. Mercer spoke again. The trust requires unanimous agreement for liquidation. However, operational control can be restructured if both parties consent. Ryan exhaled sharply. So what, she gets control? I didn't say that, Mercer replied. But a co-management structure may protect the estate from volatility. Volatility. That word hit Ryan harder than anything else. Because volatility meant vulnerability. And Ryan's entire identity was built on control. After the meeting, Ryan followed me into the hallway. The building's glass walls reflected the Austin skyline, cranes, high-rises, expansion everywhere. You think this makes you superior? He asked quietly. No. You always had this thing, he continued. Like you were above it. Above what? Needing help. I studied his face. I didn't have the option to need help. He swallowed. That's not fair. No, I agreed softly. It wasn't. Wind rushed outside as doors opened and closed below us. You know what the worst part is? He said suddenly. What? I really believed I earned everything. I felt something shift inside me. Because for the first time, he didn't sound defensive. He sounded broken. I'm not trying to take you down, I said. He looked at me sharply. Then what are you doing? I held his gaze. I'm trying to stand on level ground. He shook his head slowly. You don't understand. If investors find out my foundation was assisted, artificial, he snapped. There it was. The fear. Not losing money. Losing image. I stepped closer. Then maybe build something that doesn't require illusion. He stared at me. And for a second, I saw the 8-year-old boy holding that baseball trophy. Desperate to be seen. Desperate to be enough. Live, he said quietly. Don't destroy this. I didn't answer. Because I didn't know yet whether truth counted as destruction. That night, I couldn't sleep. Austin's skyline glowed outside my apartment window. Traffic hummed along I-35. Somewhere below, music drifted from a bar patio. My phone buzzed at 1:17 a.m. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Hello. A pause. Then a voice I didn't expect. Olivia, this is Daniel Mercer. My chest tightened. Is something wrong? Another pause. There is additional information not discussed today. The air in my apartment felt thinner. What kind of information? His tone shifted, careful now. The trust was amended 5 years ago. My heart began pounding. Amended how? A breath on the other end. Your brother is not the only beneficiary who was evaluated. Silence swallowed the room. What does that mean? I whispered. It means, Mercer said quietly, the estate may not be the only thing your parents adjusted. Ice spread through my veins. Daniel, I said slowly, what aren't you telling me? He hesitated. And that hesitation told me more than words. There are sealed documents, he finally said. Documents that were to be opened only if conflict arose between beneficiaries. Conflict. We had conflict. And I pressed. And based on today's meeting, I believe it is time. My fingers tightened around the phone. What's in them? A long pause. Then 5 words that changed everything. It concerns your birth records. The world tilted. My birth records? I repeated. Yes. Outside, a siren wailed faintly in the distance. Daniel, I said carefully, what are you implying? Another breath. Miss Bennett, are you certain you were never chosen? The call ended. And for the first time in 36 years, I wasn't questioning my brother's identity. I was questioning my own. The estate wasn't the only secret. And now the question isn't who was chosen. It's who wasn't. I didn't sleep. Not even for a minute. Austin before sunrise feels different. Quieter. Honest. The city isn't performing yet. No brunch lines on South Congress. No traffic choking I-35. Just a faint blue wash over rooftops and the low hum of early delivery trucks. I stood by my apartment window watching the skyline lighten, Daniel Mercer's words replaying on loop. It concerns your birth records. At 36 years old, there aren't many things that can destabilize you in one sentence. That was one of them. By 8:03 a.m., I was already parked outside Mercer's downtown office. The building's glass exterior reflected the pale sky, cold and sterile. My hands felt steady on the steering wheel. Too steady. Shocked as that. Inside, the receptionist didn't smile the way she had before. She recognized me now. Not as a guest. As a complication. Mercer met me personally in the lobby. You came quickly, he observed. You said birth records, I replied. That's not something you sit on. He nodded once and led me toward a smaller conference room this time. Not the main boardroom. This one had no skyline view. Just privacy. He placed a single sealed envelope on the table. Cream-colored. Thick. My name typed across the front. Olivia Marie Bennett. My middle name. Hardly anyone used it. What exactly am I about to read? I asked. Mercer folded his hands. 5 years ago, your grandmother amended the trust. She added a conditional disclosure clause. If conflict emerged between beneficiaries over control or distribution, sealed documents were to be released. And she anticipated conflict. Of course she did. Grandma Eleanor Harrison had never missed anything. Why amend it 5 years ago? I asked quietly. Mercer studied me carefully. Because 5 years ago, medical records were updated. The room felt smaller. Medical records? I repeated. He didn't answer directly. You should open it. My fingers hovered over the envelope. My name stared back at me like it belonged to someone else. I broke the seal. Inside were copies of hospital records. Legal documents. A notarized letter dated May 14th, 5 years ago. I skimmed the first page. St. David's Medical Center. Austin, Texas. September 3rd, 1989. My birth date. Everything looked normal at first glance. Until I saw it. Maternal name, not listed. My pulse thudded in my ears. What is this? I whispered. Mercer's voice remained calm. Please continue. I turned the page. Adoption transfer authorization. Signed by Eleanor Harrison. My grandmother. I stopped breathing. This isn't real, I said automatically. It is. No, I shook my head. No, I was born here. Mom always told me. You were born in that hospital, Mercer confirmed. But not to Linda Bennett. The air vanished from my lungs. I don't understand, I whispered. You were privately adopted at birth, he said gently. Your biological mother relinquished parental rights immediately. The world narrowed into a thin tunnel. That's not possible. It is. I stared at the paper. My birth certificate copy showed a revision stamp dated 3 days after birth. 3 days. Why? I demanded. Mercer hesitated. Your parents struggled with fertility for years. Ryan was born 2 years later. Naturally. The word sliced clean. Naturally. So I was what? My voice cracked despite my effort to stay steady. A backup? No. Then what was I? Mercer leaned forward slightly. You were chosen. The word hit differently now. Chosen. Not as favoritism. As placement. My stomach twisted violently. They adopted me, I whispered. Yes. And they never told me. No. The silence between us stretched. My entire childhood began rearranging itself in my memory. The way Mom clung to Ryan. The way Dad pushed him harder. The subtle difference in affection I never quite named. Was it guilt? Or distance? Why tell me now? I asked. Mercer inhaled slowly. Because 5 years ago, your grandmother requested updated DNA verification for estate clarity. DNA verification. My blood ran cold. And, I forced out. And legally, Ryan remains a biological descendant. You do not. There it was. The real fracture. The estate was Harrison money. My grandmother's lineage. Which meant, I'm not legally entitled, I finished quietly. Mercer met my eyes. You are named beneficiary. The amendment reaffirmed that. Your grandmother insisted. Why? A pause. Because she felt she owed you the truth. My vision blurred. Owed me? She believed, Mercer said carefully, that your parents favored their biological child. I let out a hollow laugh. She needed 5 years to figure that out? No, he said. She knew. She simply hoped they would correct it. Correct it. 15 years of silent imbalance. So the trust wasn't just about money, I murmured. No, Mercer replied. It was about fairness. My hands trembled slightly. They chose him, I whispered. Mercer's gaze softened. They chose you first. The words didn't comfort me. They complicated everything. Because being chosen once doesn't erase being overlooked later. I gathered the papers slowly. Does Ryan know? No. And my parents? Yes. Of course they did. Of course they had known every day of my life. Every birthday. Every graduation. Every time they told me I was stronger. They knew I wasn't biologically theirs. And they never told me. I stood abruptly. I need to leave. Mercer nodded. One more thing, he said. I paused. Your biological mother included a sealed letter in the original file. It was never opened. Your grandmother preserved it. My heart stuttered. Where is it? Mercer reached into the folder and handed me a smaller envelope. Older. Yellowed at the edges. Addressed simply. To my daughter. I couldn't breathe. She requested it only be released if you learned the truth, Mercer said quietly. I stared at the envelope. I don't even know her name. Mercer nodded. Her name was Caroline Reyes. Was. The past tense struck me instantly. She passed away 3 years ago. The room spun slightly. So now, I said faintly, I don't even get the option. I'm sorry. I tucked the envelope into my bag without opening it. Not yet. Some truths need oxygen before exposure. I drove without direction. Across Congress Avenue. Past the Capitol Dome. Over the bridge spanning Lady Bird Lake. Kayakers cut through calm water like nothing monumental had shifted in the universe. But everything had. I parked near Zilker Park and sat there for nearly an hour. Adopted. Chosen. Overlooked. Favored. Not biological. Equal beneficiary. Not lineage. The layers overlapped until I couldn't separate betrayal from protection. Finally, I dialed Mom. She answered on the second ring. Olivia. Her voice already knew. You adopted me. Silence. Then a sharp intake of breath. Who told you? That's your first question? Tears immediately filled her voice. We were going to tell you. When? I demanded. When I turned 40. 50. We didn't want you to feel different. I did feel different. I snapped. A long broken pause. You were ours, she whispered. From the moment we saw you. Then why did you treat him like he was the miracle? She started crying openly now. Because he almost died when he was born. The sentence hit unexpectedly. What? Texas storms don't always warn you. Sometimes the sky looks clear, wide, endless, blue over the hill country. And then within minutes, the wind shifts, the temperature drops, and thunder rolls in like it's been waiting. That Sunday felt like that. Bright. Deceptively calm. Loaded. Ryan and I drove separately to our parents' house in Westlake. The neighborhood looked picture-perfect. Trimmed hedges, wide driveways, American flags fluttering lazily from porches. SUVs lined the streets like nothing unstable had ever happened behind those brick walls. But stability is often performance. I parked at the curb and sat in my car for a full minute before stepping out. My reflection in the side mirror looked composed. 36 years old. Adopted. Beneficiary. Daughter. Sister. I didn't know which title applied first anymore. Ryan's car pulled in behind me. He stepped out slowly. No blazer today. No businessman armor. Just jeans and a gray sweatshirt. He looked younger like that. More honest. "You ready?" he asked. "No," I answered. "Me neither." We walked up the familiar stone path together. For once, side by side. Mom opened the door before we rang. She'd been watching. Her eyes were swollen. Dad stood behind her, rigid as ever. "Come in," Mom whispered. The house smelled like coffee and lemon cleaner. The same house where childhood arguments echoed. The same walls that held every version of our family. We sat in the living room again. Same couch, same coffee table. But this time there were no trustees. No binders. Just truth. Ryan spoke first. "When were you going to tell us?" Dad didn't pretend not to understand. Mom's voice trembled. "We were waiting for the right time." "When?" I asked evenly. "Before or after you rewrote our identities?" Dad inhaled sharply. "We didn't rewrite anything. You rewrote mine," I said. The words landed heavier than I expected. Mom began crying immediately. "We loved you from the first moment we saw you." "I'm not questioning love," I replied. "I'm questioning honesty." Silence. Ryan leaned forward. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. Dad looked at him. "Because we didn't want you to feel responsible." "Responsible for what?" Ryan demanded. "For the difference." The room tightened. "What difference?" Ryan pressed. Dad looked at me. And that look carried more guilt than explanation. Mom spoke instead. "When we adopted you, Olivia, we were desperate. We had tried for years. Loss after loss." Her voice cracked. "And then 2 years later, when I got pregnant with Ryan, we were terrified." I stared at her. "Terrified of what?" "Of losing him," she whispered. Dad nodded. "The pregnancy was high risk. There were complications. He was in the NICU for weeks." Ryan blinked. "You never told me that." "We didn't want you growing up thinking you were fragile," Mom said. "And you didn't want her growing up thinking she was different," Ryan added quietly. Mom's tears fell freely. "We thought if we treated you both the same." "You didn't," I interrupted. The room froze. Dad's jaw tightened. "We did our best." "No," I said firmly. "You protected him. You prepared me." The distinction sat heavy in the air. Mom's sobbing grew softer now, resigned, not defensive. "You were always so strong," she whispered. I leaned forward. "Did it ever occur to you that I was strong because I had to be?" Dad's composure finally cracked. "We didn't mean to hurt you." "But you did." Ryan looked between us. "So the estate," he said slowly. "Grandma knew." Dad nodded reluctantly. "She thought we were unfair." "And were you?" I asked. Silence. The truth was sitting there. Waiting. Dad exhaled deeply. "We were afraid." "Of what?" Ryan asked. "Of losing you," Mom whispered, looking at him. "And of what?" I pressed. She looked at me. "Of you leaving." The words sliced. "You thought telling me I was adopted would make me leave." "Yes." "And treating me like I was less wouldn't." Mom broke down completely. Ryan rubbed his face hard. "This is insane," he muttered. "We grew up in the same house." "Did we?" I asked quietly. That question echoed. Because physically, yes. Emotionally? Maybe not. The air felt heavy like a storm building. And I realized something. I still hadn't opened the letter. It sat in my bag like a heartbeat I hadn't faced yet. I reached down slowly and pulled it out. The yellowed envelope. To my daughter. Mom saw it. Her breathing hitched. "What is that?" she asked. "A letter," I replied. "From Caroline Reyes." The name sounded foreign in this house. Dad closed his eyes. "You have it," he said quietly. "You knew about it." "Yes." "Did you read it?" "No." Mom shook her head violently. "We couldn't." "Why?" "Because it wasn't ours." That answer surprised me. For once, they hadn't crossed a line. Ryan looked at the envelope like it was radioactive. Are you going to open it? He asked softly. I swallowed. Yes. The room went silent. I slid my finger under the fragile flap. Paper crackled as I unfolded it. The handwriting was slanted, slightly shaky. I began reading aloud. September 2nd, 1989. To my daughter. If you are reading this, then someone has decided you deserve the truth. I am 19 years old as I write this. I am not ready to be someone's mother. Not because I don't love you, but because I love you enough to know I cannot give you what you deserve. My throat tightened. Mom sobbed quietly. I continued. Your grandmother, Eleanor Harrison, sat with me today. She promised me something I never thought I'd hear. She promised me you would be chosen, not abandoned. My breath caught. She said you would grow up in a house that wanted you. That prayed for you. That fought for you. Tears blurred the ink. I am not giving you away. I am giving you forward. The room felt smaller. Ryan's eyes were red now. If you ever wonder whether you were loved, the answer is yes. If you ever wonder whether I thought of you, the answer is every day. I hope you grow strong. Not because you have to be, but because you are. My voice cracked. The last line trembled as I read it. And if they ever make you feel like you were not enough, remember, I chose you too. The room was silent except for breathing. Heavy. Broken. Human. I lowered the paper slowly. Mom whispered, We never meant to make you feel like that. I looked at her. But you did. Ryan stood and walked toward the window. I don't even know what I am right now, he said quietly. I understood. He wasn't just the biological son anymore. He was the one who had been protected from truth. Dad cleared his throat. The estate was meant to protect both of you. No, I said softly. It was meant to balance you. Silence. And then I said the thing none of us were ready for. Grandma didn't trust you to do it. Dad flinched. Because that was the real betrayal. Not adoption. Not money. Distrust. Ryan turned around slowly. So what now? He asked. That was the question. Because we couldn't undo this. We couldn't unknow it. I folded the letter carefully. I want full transparency, I said. You have it, Dad replied. No, I corrected. Everything. What does that mean? Mom asked. It means I want to see every disbursement. Every transfer. Every decision made in our names. Ryan looked at me. And then we decide what kind of family we actually are. Dad stared at the floor. You're threatening us. No, I said calmly. I'm giving you a choice. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Mom's voice was barely audible. What kind of choice? I held her gaze. Truth. Or performance. Thunder rolled faintly in the distance. Actual thunder. Texas timing. Ryan inhaled slowly. I'm in, he said. Dad looked up sharply. You're siding with her? I'm siding with reality, Ryan replied quietly. The words shifted something permanent. For the first time in our lives, we weren't divided by favoritism. We were aligned by truth. And that scared our parents more than anything. Dad stood abruptly. You have no idea what you're asking for. Then tell us, I said. His eyes flickered with something I hadn't seen before. Fear. Some things, he said slowly, were done to protect this family. I felt my pulse spike. What things? Mom shook her head slightly. Don't. Ryan stepped closer. What did you do? Dad's jaw tightened. The trust wasn't the only thing structured. The air thinned. What does that mean? I asked quietly. He hesitated. Long enough to confirm it mattered. There were conditions. Conditions. Ryan repeated. On what? Dad swallowed. On you. The room went still. On me. Ryan asked. Dad nodded once. And on you, he added, looking at me. Ice crept down my spine. What kind of conditions? I whispered. Another roll of thunder cracked across the sky. Dad closed his eyes. The kind that were never meant to surface. The lights flickered once as wind hit the house. And for the first time, I realized the estate wasn't the deepest secret in this family. It was just the beginning. The adoption is revealed. The letter is read. Ryan aligns with Olivia. But their father just admitted something worse. There were conditions placed on both of them. And whatever those conditions were, they were never meant to be discovered. The storm finally broke. Rain lashed against the windows of our parents' house like something demanding entry. Texas thunder cracked across the sky with the kind of force that makes you feel small. Inside, no one moved. Dad's words still hung in the air. There were conditions. On you. On you. Ryan stood stiff, hands clenched at his sides. What kind of conditions? He repeated. Dad looked older than I had ever seen him. Not physically. Exposed. Mom whispered, "Please don't." But it was too late for protecting anyone. Dad exhaled slowly. "When your grandmother set up the trust, she didn't just divide assets," he began. "She created performance benchmarks." I felt my pulse steady into something cold. "Performance," I repeated. "Yes." Ryan let out a sharp laugh. "What are we, racehorses?" Dad didn't respond to the sarcasm. "She believed," he continued carefully, "that both of you needed incentive." "Incentive for what?" I asked. "To prove yourselves." The words hit like steel. Ryan shook his head. "Prove what?" Dad looked at me first. "That you could succeed independently." Then at Ryan. "That you wouldn't collapse under pressure." Silence. It took a second for the meaning to land. "You mean," Ryan's voice lowered, "you intentionally made things harder?" Dad didn't deny it. "You had access to funds," he said. "But not unlimited access." Ryan's face drained. "You're telling me some of my deals were restricted?" "Yes." "And mine?" I asked quietly. Dad hesitated. "You were never offered direct financial assistance." "That wasn't new." "That wasn't the condition," he added. My chest tightened. "Then what was?" Mom's hands were trembling now. "Eleanor wanted to see who would ask," Dad said. The room went silent. "Ask for what?" Ryan demanded. "For help." I felt something inside me go very still. "She believed," Dad continued, "that the child who learned to ask for support would be stronger in the long run." I stared at him. "You're telling me this entire dynamic was engineered?" He didn't answer. Because he didn't have to. Ryan ran a hand down his face slowly. "So when I asked for business backing," Dad nodded once. "You passed." Ryan looked like he'd been punched. "And when I didn't ask?" I whispered. Dad's eyes met mine. "You proved you could survive alone." The cruelty of it settled in. "You rewarded him for dependence," I said calmly. "And you rewarded me with isolation." "That's not what we intended," Mom cried. "But it's what you created," I replied. The rain intensified. Thunder cracked so loud it rattled the glass. Ryan turned toward me slowly. "So all those times you didn't come to us," he said softly. "You think I didn't need to?" I asked. He swallowed. "I thought you just didn't want us." I laughed quietly, not amused. "I thought you didn't see me." The truth was sitting between us now. Neither of us had been villains. We had been variables. Dad sat down heavily. "Your grandmother believed struggle revealed character." "And what did it reveal?" I asked. Silence. Because that was the part they never calculated. It revealed fracture. It revealed distance. It revealed quiet resentment layered over years. Ryan exhaled slowly. "So what was the endgame?" he asked. Dad's voice lowered. "The endgame was equality." The irony was brutal. "Equality?" I repeated. "Yes." "By creating imbalance?" Dad didn't defend it. Because he couldn't. Mom looked at me desperately. "We thought you were strong enough." I met her gaze. Strength isn't the same thing as not needing love. Her face crumpled. Ryan paced slowly across the room. "So this whole time," he said quietly, "I thought I was earning something." "You were," I said. He looked at me. "So were you." That was the hardest truth of all. We both worked. We both bled in different ways. But the framework had been manipulated. Dad leaned forward slightly. The trust wasn't punishment. It was protection. "For who?" I asked. "For both of you." "No," I corrected calmly. "It was control." That word landed heavy. Dad flinched. And for the first time, he didn't argue. The storm outside began to settle slightly. Rain softened. Inside, something irreversible had already happened. Ryan stopped pacing. "So what now?" he asked. That question had followed us since New Year's. I stood slowly. "What do you want?" I asked him. He thought for a long moment. "I don't want an illusion," he said finally. "I don't want to wonder if I built something real." I nodded. "And you?" he asked me. I inhaled deeply. "I don't want to feel like strength was assigned to me instead of chosen by me." The distinction mattered. Dad looked at both of us. "What are you saying?" I turned toward him fully. "I'm saying the estate gets restructured." Ryan glanced at me. "How?" "We remove conditional frameworks. We remove leverage tied to approval. We split operational control completely." Dad stiffened. "That wasn't Eleanor's vision." "No," I said quietly. "It was yours." Silence. And there it was. The final exposure. Grandma had built the framework. But our parents enforced it. Expanded it. Manipulated it. Ryan looked at Dad carefully. Did you ever plan to tell us about the conditions? Dad didn't answer immediately. Not unless it became necessary. And what qualifies as necessary? I asked. He met my eyes. This. Honesty had finally arrived. Too late. But here. Mom whispered. We thought we were shaping you. Ryan's voice softened. You shaped us. And, she asked desperately. And now we decide what to keep. That was the shift. Not revenge. Choice. For the first time, real choice. The storm outside had reduced to steady rain. The house felt different. Not healed, but honest. Dad leaned back slowly. If you remove the structure, you both assume full risk. Ryan looked at me. I nodded. We're adults, I said. Dad studied us. You're certain? Yes, we said together. And that unity unsettled him more than any accusation. Because control thrives in division. And for the first time, we weren't divided. 2 months later, April sunlight washed over downtown Austin. Bluebonnets lined highways. Food trucks were back in full swing. The city felt alive again. The estate documents were finalized. Assets divided cleanly. No performance clauses. No conditional evaluations. No dependency incentives. Just ownership. Ryan's portfolio shrank slightly without strategic leverage. But it was real. Mine expanded. But it was mine. We signed in the same glass conference room where it began. Mercer watched quietly. No further amendments? He asked. No, I said. No, Ryan echoed. Mercer nodded. Then the Harrison estate, as originally structured, concludes today. There was something poetic about that. Concludes. Ryan looked at me after signing. You okay? He asked. Yeah. You. He gave a small nod. Feels different. It is. We walked out into warm Texas air together. Downtown traffic buzzed. A street musician played guitar near Congress Avenue. Life didn't pause for family revelations. Ryan stopped before reaching his car. Live? Yeah. He hesitated. Back on New Year's when I said they chose me. I waited. I didn't understand what that meant. I know. He exhaled slowly. I don't want to be chosen anymore. The words were simple. Powerful. I studied him. You don't have to be. He smiled faintly. And you? I looked up at the wide Texas sky stretching endless above us. I was chosen twice, I said softly. He nodded. And now? Now I choose myself. There it was. Not rejection. Not resentment. Not revenge. Agency. Ryan stepped forward and hugged me. Not polished, not performative. Just real. We're okay, he asked quietly. We're rebuilding, I answered. He nodded. That's better. He drove off. I stood there a moment longer, feeling something unfamiliar. Not anger. Not sadness. Not even triumph. Clarity. My phone buzzed. A message from Mom. We're proud of you. I stared at it. For the first time. I didn't need that sentence to define me. I typed back. Thank you. We'll talk soon. Because healing doesn't erase damage. But it stops denial. And somewhere in Austin, under a wide open sky, a family built on performance finally faced truth. My brother wasn't chosen. He was protected. I wasn't overlooked. I was underestimated. And the trustee? He didn't correct the story. He revealed it.